Next is emotions. Let's dive into a detailed exploration of how the brain processes emotions, breaking down the complex mechanism into understandable terms. Understanding the emotions. Emotions are a fundamental aspect of human experience, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships. They encompass a wide range of feelings from joy and love to fear and sadness and play a crucial role in our daily lives. Emotions can be triggered by internal or external stimuli such as thoughts, memories, sensory inputs, or social interactions. The brain's ability to perceive, interpret, and respond to emotional cues is essential for adaptive functioning and survival. Next is neuroanatomy of emotions. The brain regions involved in processing emotions are the part of the limbic system, a complex network of structures located deep within the brain. Key structures within the limbic system include: first is amygdala. The amygdala is a small almond shaped structure located in the temporal lobe. It plays a central role in processing and regulating emotions, particularly fear and anxiety. The amygdala receives sensory inputs from various brain regions and is involved in the rapid assessment of threat or danger. Second is hippocampus. The hippocampus is another structure within the limbic system, situated adjacent to the amygdala. While primarily associated with the memory formation and spatial navigation, the hippocampus also interacts with the amygdala to modulate emotional responses and regulate stress. Next is hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small structure located below the thalamus and above the brainstem. It serves as a link between the nervous system and the endocrine system, regulating various physiological processes, including stress responses, appetite, and sexual behavior. The hypothalamus plays a role in orchestrating emotional responses by releasing hormones and neurotransmitters that influence mood and arousal. Next is prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, particularly the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, is involved in the higher order cognitive processes, including decision making, impulse control, and social behavior. It also plays a crucial role in regulating emotional responses by modulating activity within the limbic system and integrating the emotional information with the cognitive and social context. Next is the neurochemistry of emotions. Neurotransmitters and hormones plays a vital role in regulating emotional responses and mood. Key neurotransmitters and hormones involved in emotional processing include: first is serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that regulates mood, sleep, and appetite. Imbalances in serotonin levels are associated with the mood disorders such as depression and anxiety. Next is dopamine. Dopamine is another neurotransmitter implicated in reward processing, motivation, and pleasure. Dysregulation of dopamine signaling is linked to addiction, schizophrenia, and other psychiatric disorders. Next is norepinephrine. Norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline, is involved in the body's stress response and arousal. It plays a role in modulating attention and vigilance and emotional arousal. Next is cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone which is released by the adrenal glands in response to perceived threats or stressors. Chronic stress can lead to dysregulation of cortisol levels, contributing to anxiety, depression, and other stress related disorders. Next is emotional processing. The brain processes emotions through a series of interconnected neural circuits and pathways. When we encounter emotional stimuli such as a threatening situation or a pleasant experience, sensory information is relayed to the amygdala where it undergoes rapid evaluation and processing. The amygdala accesses the emotional significance of the stimulus and generates the appropriate physiological and behavioral responses. Simultaneously, the prefrontal cortex and other cortical regions receives inputs from the amygdala and modulate emotional responses based on cognitive appraisal and social context. For example, the prefrontal cortex may inhibit amygdala activity in situations where the perceived threat is minimal or where the cognitive control is needed to regulate the emotional impulses. The hippocampus plays a role in contextualizing emotional experiences and integrating them into memory networks. Emotional events are more likely to be remembered and recalled vividly due to amygdala's influence on hippocampal function. Regulation of emotions. Emotional regulations refers to the ability to modulate and manage one's emotional responses effectively. It involves cognitive, behavioral, and physiological strategies aimed at modifying the intensity, duration, or expression of emotions. Healthy emotional regulation is essential for maintaining the psychological well being and adaptive functioning. Several brain regions are involved in emotional regulation, including the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and insula. These regions exert top down control over subcortical structures such as the amygdala, modulating emotional responses through cognitive reappraisal, attentional deployment, and response inhibition. Next is disorders of emotion. Dysregulation of emotional processing can contribute to various psychiatric disorders and mood disturbances. First is depression. Depression is characterized by persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and loss of interest or pleasures in activities. It is associated with alterations in neurotransmitter systems, particularly serotonin and norepinephrine, as well as dysfunction in prefrontal limbic circuits involved in emotional regulations. Next is anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are characterized by excessive worry, fear, and apprehension, often in response to perceived threats or stressors. Dysregulation of the amygdala and abnormalities in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis contribute to the heightened arousal and vigilance in anxiety disorders. Next is post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. PTSD is a disorder that can develop following exposures to traumatic events. It is characterized by intrusive memories, hyperarousal, and avoidance behaviors. Dysregulation of fear circuitry involving the amygdala and hippocampus underlies the symptoms of PTSD. Next is bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is characterized by recurrent episodes of mania, which is elevated mood, increased energy, and the depression. Dysregulation of dopamine and serotonin symptoms, as well as alterations in prefrontal limbic circuits, contribute to the fluctuating moods observed in bipolar disorder. Last is conclusion. In summary, emotions are complex physiological phenomena influenced by neural, chemical, and environmental factors. The brain's limbic system, including structures such as the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex, plays a central role in processing, regulating, and expressing emotions. Neurotransmitters and hormones modulate the emotional responses while cognitive processes and social factors influence the emotional interpretation and expression. Dysregulation of emotional processing can lead to the psychiatric disorders and mood disturbances, highlighting the importance of understanding the neural mechanisms underlying the emotions for promoting the mental health and well being.